This is the Tech Phantom, and welcome to episode 2 of this Dark Souls walkthrough. Excuse me. And let me take a little sip of water here. Alright, had a frog in my throat there. Anyway, in this episode, we are going to continue the Chronicles of Conan and Lordran. And at the very beginning, we see that Conan has finally found his beloved sword. As a matter of fact, we can almost picture Conan saying to himself, "My sword, my great sword, my claymore." So this is going to be a fun playthrough for a couple of different reasons. One of which is that it's going to give me an opportunity to work on my German accent, which it's a fun thing to do. So hopefully you guys can give me some feedback on that and send me some. Why don't you put a comment or a note or send me a message and give me the phonetic pronunciation of some of the things that Conan the Barbarian might say in this walkthrough. And because Arnold Schwarzenegger is to me is the ultimate Conan, and he is the iconic Conan, and he is never to be replaced. A little bit like how I feel about Sean Connery in the James Bond series. I'm gonna try to do a couple of lines of commentary by Conan in Arnold Schwarzenegger's accent. So hopefully you guys will help me with that. I think I have a good handle on how to say sword and claymore, but like I said, if you guys can give me a little bit of help with that, that would be fantastic. And by the way, big shout out to Maid Ross, who reminded me about that. It's actually it was something that I had talked to him about doing in this playthrough. I was being a little bit chicken about it, but you know what? I've done a lot of Dark Souls playthrough. This is going to be kind of a fun playthrough. So we will work on our Arnold Schwarzenegger accent in this walkthrough. All right, but as usual, I ended up going on a fairly a long tangent there on the introduction, as I tend to do. So I apologize for that. So let's get back to this playthrough. So obviously, Conan has his claymore, his great sword, and that is going to be not only his primary weapon, that is going to be his only weapon. And in this episode, I am going to talk a little bit about my decisions and my choices for both the armor and the weapons that Conan would use if he were to be magically teleported to the land of Dark Souls, to Lordran, which is actually what's happening here. That's why this walkthrough it's called the Chronicles of Conan and Lordran. So I did quite a bit of research, as I said earlier, and that's one of the reasons why it took so long for the first episode of this walkthrough to come out after I made the trailer. And that is because I wanted to pay homage to the Conan canon, to the Conan mythology, and to try to make it as true as I could in both the playthrough aspects and also in my narration. So I look forward to your comments, guys, and I hope that you will help me achieve that. So let's talk a little bit. We're gonna go into our first boss fight with our weapon, with the claymore. So let's talk a little bit about the boss fight, and then after that we will switch gears, and I'll talk about the equipment choices that I've made for this character, for Conan the Barbarian. So we see that Conan steps through the fog gate, and he sees an ambush. So he quickly turns around, doubles back, and dispatches of these hollows that were trying to kite him with their crossbows. He proceeds forward, and he sees a gigantic bull demon jumping out of the other tower, and he decides to go up the tower and to escape the demon. Not because he's afraid of the Taurus demon, it's just because he wanted to do a plunging attack. So it was a strategic retreat in Conan's part. Obviously, Conan the Barbarian is afraid of nothing other than magic and sorcery. But that more about that in a future episode. So at this point, Conan does not have his full set of abilities. His claymore is not very strong. It has lost its edge, and obviously Conan needs to find a blacksmith to help him repair and sharpen the sword and help him get its power back. Also, Conan has been debilitated. Again, this is a magical land of Lordran. This is not Conan's original land. So when he showed up in Lordran, he did not have all of his strength and all of his vitality and all of his endurance and all of his dexterity. And during the next few episodes, as he conquers these lands, he will little by little improve his weapon and also gain his previous powers. All right, so the Claymore did a fairly decent job with the Taurus demon, and you guys saw the strategy that Conan ended up using, which is to bait the Taurus demon into an attack, then step back or roll back from his weapon range, and the Taurus demon has an extremely long recovery. That has to do with the fact that he's using a great axe, but that also has to do with the fact that he's a boss, and bosses in Dark Souls, and this is something that Conan is starting to realize, have long recovery times. So a lot of times, if you're able to block their attacks, with some bosses, they have a very, very long recovery window, which is an opportunity to hit them after you've dodged, and if you're quick enough, you could even score a counter. Alright, so let's go back and let's talk about the equipment choices that I've made for Conan. So, in the Conan mythology, Conan does wear chainmail and he does wear heavy plate armor when necessary. And on some of the movies, he's actually depicted wearing these kinds of armor. However, most of the time, and this is because he was a thief for a very long time and a very, very good thief, Conan actually prefers to be light and mobile, and he actually prefers leather armor or no armor at all. So, for this walkthrough, what we are going to do for Conan, or what Conan is going to decide, I'm going to have to figure out if I want to do Conan in third person or in first person. And you guys let me know your preference in the comments. But let's go ahead and let's narrate this as if we were a third person, I guess, a party that was looking at Conan progressing through, sort of like a narrator, the role that the wizard had in the 1982 Conan the Barbarian movie. So, and let me know if that's too cheesy or not on the comments. And again, I look forward to your feedback. So let's go back to the decisions that Conan has decided to make for this walkthrough as far as his weapon and his equipment. So let's talk about the weapon a little bit. So the weapon, it was actually a very easy choice. The iconic view that I have of Conan in my mind is that he uses a greatsword. But he does not use a gigantic greatsword. So the ultra greatswords, these Vai Honda and the greatsword, where to me were out, and also the Black Knight Greatsword were out. Even though they're very, very powerful weapons worthy of Conan, I thought that because Conan is, in addition to being incredibly strong and powerful, he is also very mobile and very agile. And I think that Conan would actually use a claymore um, if he ever found one. So that is the decision that I've made. I also think that the claymore looks extremely um, balanced. I don't want to say balanced, but it just plain looks good on this character. I think the look of it, it just looks like Conan on screen. And sorry, guys, I'm bouncing back and forth on narration perspectives here. So let me go back to this to the wizard, quote unquote, telling the story of Conan here. So Conan decided to select the claymore because he values mobility and he wants a weapon that is both powerful but that is also relatively um, can attack relatively quickly, especially when you compare it to the great swords. As far as a longsword, a longsword does not make sense to Conan. Conan didn't like, even though he's been trained on all weapons and he knows how to use everything from the claw to halberds to daggers to standard swords. Um, the longsword was just not going to be a weapon that would I think it would be worthy of Conan. I think the Claymore is more of a worthy weapon for Conan. And again, because he values mobility, he's going with the Greatsword as opposed to an Ultra Greatsword. Alright, so that's enough about the Claymore, and I'm sure there's going to be some disagreement, so look forward to seeing your comments there, but that's the weapon that Conan has decided to use in this episode. Or, I'm sorry, in this walkthrough. Let's talk about equipment. So, Conan has used leather armor in the past. Um, he's also used plate armor and chainmail. But I think the best look for Conan would be minimum armor. And Conan in the land of Lordran is going to use a waistcloth, something that provides a little bit of protection to his nether regions, but helps him with poise. He's going to look for a good pair of hand wraps, a good pair of armor for his forearms, for his arms. And he is also going to look for a good headpiece. Right now, he has a leather headpiece, which looks pretty good on him. It looks like something Conan the Thief would wear, but eventually he is looking for a more substantial helmet, preferably something with horns. Wow. So hint hint there at what is coming up as far as his Conan build. Conan is not going to wear any upper body armor. And again, the reason for this is number one, the look. It just looks Conan looks more powerful and more intimidating if he doesn't even have any upper body armor, any chest armor, if he only has the waistcloth, his arm wraps and headpiece. And you know, he wants to show off his powerful muscles and intimidate his opponents as he approaches them, clutching his two-handed weapon, his claymore. So the armor requirements for this character are going for Conan are going to be pretty minimal. And the other thing that Conan is not going to use, and that is because there's absolutely no need for it, is a shield. Conan is very powerful, very strong. He can dish out a lot of damage, but he can also take a ton of punishment. So a shield is not going to be necessary. He's going to go hand to hand. He's going to go into hand-to-hand combat with all enemies. And even though he's learned and he knows how to use a shield, he is not going to. He has decided not to use a shield for this walkthrough. So again, I thought that that decision was consistent with both the Conan lore, and I think it also increases the challenge of the build and the walkthrough a little bit. But I think for the biggest reason is that seeing Conan with the shield on his back or blocking with one hand, I think it's not very Conan-like. And Conan the Barbarian is going to go into a fight, kick butt, take names, just start swinging with his claymore, use his power, use his great strength to dish out a ton of damage, and use his ability and his agility to dodge attacks. And as a barbarian, Conan is. People think of Conan as a big brute because he's so big and strong and powerful. But in reality, Conan is very wise, Conan is very smart, and Conan is a battle tactician. He is a very very brilliant um, strategist. So he is going to quickly figure out the best strategy to take on a boss or to take on onto a battle, and he is not going to need a shield in order to do that, or he's going to devise a strategy that doesn't require him to use a shield because he wants to take maximum advantage of the reach and the power that dual wielding the claymore will allow him. All right, so that is sort of the introduction or the explanation, the logic for the equipment that Conan is going to use in this walkthrough. And like I said, I hope you guys agree with those choices. If you don't, hit me up on YouTube. Let me know what you think, and we can have some lively discussion around that point. And that's one of the most fun things about walkthroughs is that you get to hear other people's perspectives and takes on builds and characters that you're cosplaying, and it makes the whole playthrough quite a bit more fun, especially the narration um, of the videos after the playthrough is done. All right, so Conan has encountered a six-eye sorcerer, and this sorcerer uses his magic to buff his um, his followers, which are hollow undead. And Conan is a little bit leery of magic, so he's going to be careful around this sorcerer. He definitely wants to make sure he doesn't get hit by the sorcery, but on on a melee battle like the sorcerer just tried there with his trident, it's really um, no challenge at all. Especially now that Conan has found Andre, the blacksmith, who has helped Conan recover the claymore, the claymore's edge, and the claymore has now gotten about 30% of its strength back, or at least 30% of its edge back. As Conan becomes more powerful, he can hit harder with the weapon, but he still needs to find ways to sharpen the edge of the claymore even more and restore it to 100% of its strength.
Oh, still human, are you? Then I am in luck. Could you help me? As you can see, I am stuck without
Conan finds a golden armored knight in a cell. Now, Conan was a prisoner. He was actually a slave.
Yes,
So he takes pity
said,
on this knight,
I am
Knight
Knight
Lautrec
Lordran
of Karim,
of Karim.
and
I truly appreciate it.
he opens
And
up
I
the
guarantee
jail
it
cell,
will
much like the
only
knight did
later.
for Conan in the Northern Undead Asylum at the beginning of the game. But after talking to Lautrec, Conan is a little bit weary. As a barbarian, he kind of has a sixth sense for reading people, and he does not get a very, very good vibe from Lautrec. So even though Lautrec promised a reward, Conan is a little bit weary of this character. He proceeds forward looking for one of the two Bell of Awakenings, which um, the crestfallen warrior had told him about earlier at the Firelink Shrine bonfire. He notices a summon sign. So in this surreal land, he can actually summon companions, summon somebody like Solaire. But Conan is supremely confident of his capabilities, and he is not going to need any help whatsoever. Other people have asked Conan for help. Conan is supremely independent, and he is loath to ask help unless it's absolutely required. And he's going to go into battle once more with only his trusty claymore at his side. As he goes through the fog gate, he sees a gargoyle, a stone gargoyle that comes to life, wielding a gigantic halberd. To battle. Conan quickly chops the gargoyle's tail with his claymore. The claymore wielded by Conan is so powerful that it's actually stunning the gargoyle in 2 or 3 hits, which Conan can take advantage of this fact. After dispatching the first gargoyle, a second gargoyle tries to ambush Conan. This one has been damaged, his tail is cut, so he only has half his life. He tries to spew fire at Conan, but that is not going to help this second gargoyle. And this beast has been slain. Conan is victorious, and he proceeds forward into the tower. He finds a very, very tall ladder, which he starts to climb. He's climbing up to the belfry, where there will be undoubtedly be a bell which he can ring. This land is beautiful. There are some amazing views to be experienced from this vantage point. Conan finally reaches the bell and rings it. The bell makes a very, very loud peal and is heard throughout the land. So he has completed half of the job that the crestfallen warrior told him he needed to do. He has found the first bell of awakening. Now Conan needs to find the second bell and ring it, and see what the result is going to be. As he leaves the belfry, he encounters a strange magician cleric, Oswald of Karim, the Pardoner.
I am Oswald of Karim, the Pardoner. Thou appearest to lack faith, yet magnanimous are the gods. Cometh thou to confess,
Oswald talks about
or to accuse?
the gods and talks about how he can pardon you for your sins, but he does not realize that Conan is a barbarian, and Conan has a very, very merciless god, and that god is Crom, and Crom cares nothing for doling out punishment to sinners. So trying to beg forgiveness and beg pardon from Crom would be useless. This partner also sells some items, so he is also a merchant.
It is only human to commit a sin.
And with that, that is going to be it for this episode of Conan of Lordran.